Hello, today I thought I'd show you this painting, which I did yesterday. I had visitors coming for dinner in a couple of hours' time, but I really felt like getting some paint down on paper. So I looked through the album of photos which I've taken and set aside to paint, and picked this one of the Town Roath engine house looking down towards Chapelporth in the village of St Agnes, Cornwall. I'll leave the photo up for the whole time that I'm doing the watercolour painting. I didn't plan it very well, I'm afraid. I could have shuffled over my watercolour pad to one side a bit more and then had the photo a bit bigger. I'm always a bit self-conscious of leaving the photo up like this when I'm painting, because it makes it even more obvious what I should have done better as I was going along. I'm working on Baohong cold press paper, and it's the professional version. And I mainly use a number 8 Princeton Neptune brush and a number 12 silver black velvet brush. I didn't want to do a splodge and scribble painting today. I wanted to do something a little bit more delicate and accurate, I suppose. I really enjoyed working on this paper, and I was drawn to using quite a lot of granulating watercolour paints. So the laydown at this stage was just so enjoyable. I didn't have a clear idea in my head of what the final picture would look like. I think at this stage, though, I knew it would look slightly stylised, because I was leaving white in between the different watercolour sections. That's mainly because I'm impatient and don't want to have to wait for different watercolour layers to dry. But also I just really enjoy the feel of watercolour on the dry paper rather than wet in wet. I also didn't bother with any pencil sketch, I just went straight in with the paint. I think landscapes can be a more forgiving subject if things aren't completely accurate. Also though, I was trying to keep it as quick as possible because of my visitors coming. I loved the more moody feel of the photo, and I used some really gorgeous paints. I'll run through what they are now. So for the sky, I used Roman Szmal's Lazurite, which is lapis lazuli. For the little green hill peeping through, I used Roman Szmal's Green Earth, and then for the distant cliff, I used Rosa Gallery's Cobalt Grey. I'm absolutely loving this paint at the moment. It has the most wonderful granulation. I've got it in a full pan, and so it's a bit big to take out with me very often, but I was really happy that I've just discovered the tubes of the granulating Rosa Gallery paints online, so I'll link to those down below. Then for the top big hill, I used A Gallows Verdaccio, with some more Rosa Gallery's Cobalt Grey for the rocks at the bottom. Then where that hill fades out and gets a bit greener, and for the rounded hill in the middle, I used Roman Szmal's Glauconite. It's like a slightly yellower version of Green Earth. The long darker hill near the bottom of the picture was done using Daniel Smith's Zoisite, and then the very bottom hill was done using Rosa Gallery's Jade Green. And I also added Roman Szmal's Aquarius Green and Roman Szmal's Olive Green Light into the foreground. For some of the darker patches around the painting, I used Roman Szmal's Aquarius Black. For all the sand that I've just painted, I used Daniel Smith's Buff Titanium, and now I'm darkening up some parts of the sand using Daniel Smith's Hematite Violet Genuine. I also dot some of the Hematite Violet Genuine into different parts of the hills just to warm them up a little bit. Now for the sea, I'm using Roman Szmal's Lazurite again. It's a very low tinting strength paint, but absolutely gorgeous to use, and I don't get any streakiness from it. I also want to add a slightly greener tinge to the sea, so I use some of Issaro's Eternal Summit, which is a gorgeous pale duck egg colour. Those are all the main colours I use anyway. So you can see I just went back over the landscape and added in a few more details here and there, and I put some more contrast in the sky and sea using my Marie Blues Payne's Grey. And I also painted in the tin mine. I'd not left a space for it before because I knew I was doing quite light washes. I wasn't too worried about painting over the top of what I'd already done. I also used kitchen towel on the wet paint of the sky to create some more clouds. I like keeping all of my paint pans with magnets on the bottom of them in big tins, and then I can just take out the ones I want for any given painting. I was reasonably happy with the painting at this point, but I was willing to risk mucking it up by experimenting and adding some oil pastels. I just felt like the painting was missing a little bit of richness and contrast. I also like being able to add a really good true white. I'm using my set of 72 Paul Rubens Haiya Oil Pastels here. Mainly I use my finger to do the blending out, but I also sometimes use a firm wedge sponge, which came with some Faber-Castell gelatos. Whatever medium I'm using, I'm always really keen when there's a very, very dark green. And unfortunately there isn't a dark enough one in the Haiya Oil Pastel set. I get out a tin which I keep a few loose oil pastels in, and I use a Neopastel by Caran for a really good dark green. I can't get the precision I want with oil pastels, so I come in with my Caran Luminance coloured pencils and put in a few details, including some grasses and stuff in the foreground. I lost some of the nice granulation in some of the areas of paint by adding the oil pastels, but I think overall I'm happier with the picture. I hope you enjoyed watching the process anyway. It feels a bit different from my usual style, but I really enjoyed it. And I got it finished in time, ready for my visitors coming. It took me just over an hour and a quarter altogether. I'll also mention here that just recently I sorted all of my YouTube videos out into different playlists. If you look on my YouTube homepage, under the Playlists tab, there's various categories listed. Some videos fall under different categories, so I've included them more than once. It's not a perfect system, but a few people had requested it, so it might make finding things a little bit easier. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!